Hey everyone, welcome. It's great to have you all here. Thanks so much for joining in. If you're just now joining, feel free to drop into the chat where you're from, what church you're a part of, and all those kinds of things. I love hearing different places that are represented here as we have these chats and everything like that. So, but I just want to introduce myself and just quickly do a round of introductions. Two speakers that we have today. My name is Brandon Swain. I serve as the Strategic Partnership Manager here at Tithely, and I want to introduce some of our good friends over at Switcher.
Thanks, Brandon. I'm also Brandon. I'm Brandon Ramos, the COO of Switcher Studio. I'm really excited to be with you all today. We've been partners with Tithely for a little while now, but it's really starting to ramp up this year, and we're excited to kind of share our best practices between our audiences here.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, you guys got the Brandons today, so it's going to get a little confusing, maybe a little bit. But Brandon S and Brandon R. That's the best way to put it.
Indeed.
Yeah. Brandon, before we get started, just tell me, I know you had a couple things that you wanted to announce, and I had an announcement for the Tithely side of things as well, if that's okay. But I'd love to hear what you guys are planning in the next couple of months over at Switcher.
Sure. Thanks so much. I'd say, as we go into the end of the year, we're really concentrated on helping all of our customers be ready for the holiday seasons, particularly our church customers getting ready for Christmas. This becomes one of the most important times of the year. And so it is a big time of year for streaming, both folks who have done it before, but also a lot of our customers are getting ready for the first time, right? When they want to stream their services around Christmas. So that is one of the main focuses that we're on. So it's been a whole lot of getting folks ready and priming them so that they can really set up. We really want to help folks put their best foot forward during this time of year. Oftentimes, it's where people are really ramping towards. So we're looking forward to that as we get towards the end of this year. We're also putting together a whole learning series of webinars. So I know we'll talk a little bit more about that later today, but this is kind of our first discussion of the series. We'll get a chance to talk about multi-streaming today, but eventually really want to get that into how to do your first stream. We'll do another one together about giving. And looking forward to setting up for Christmas streams and what you do even beyond that once you finish your stream. So we'll get into that more as we get going.
Yeah, it's super important. Really appreciate you guys being able to provide that kind of content and that value to churches around the world. And it's such a huge thing. And I'm excited to dive deeper into that today, or live streaming and everything like that today. Just a little announcement, just kind of a tease for the Tithely side. We're getting ready to showcase or unveil what we're doing for Cyber Monday. We've always done some kind of a discount for the month of November, and this year is no different. We're going to be doing something for Cyber Monday. So just a little tease, no details yet, but we have some big things coming. I think it's going to be our biggest discount of the year. So if you're a church that doesn't have any sort of church management software or shopping for church management software and online giving and all that kind of stuff, November is a great time to buy because it's the season of discounts. So be on the lookout for that, and I'm excited to share more about those details as time goes on. But just a little tease right now. But Brandon, as we dive in, I want to just ask the question as simply as it might be, and this might kind of be a silly question, but why does live streaming actually matter for churches? And this is the whole reason we're talking today. We want to, COVID kind of showed everybody that, hey, we should be online because no one can be in church. But why does it matter now? In 2025, why should churches be live streaming?
It's a great question. And it's funny, about 2 years ago, we did a full tour with our church customers. And it was the core, the fundamental question of, hey, for folks who are streaming post-pandemic, why are you choosing to do it? And I really wanted to hear it from the churches themselves. And, what I'd say here is we heard two main really important themes come through crystal clear from all of our church customers. One, there was a desire to make sure that the message being shared in service was driving reach. And that meant, kind of two audiences there. One was the people who wanted to stay connected but could not be there in person. So this could be folks who had gotten a little older, had a hard time getting there, or sometimes I spoke to customers who were even in hospital or in hospice. They still wanted to be connected, and Livestream was a vital connection for those folks. And so that was a great part of the church's mission, to be able to reach those people. I'd also say I spoke with a lot of customers where they said reach was important to them because they wanted to spread their message across the globe. And this gave a chance for the church's message to be out there beyond the church doors. And so that reach, even post-pandemic, became a huge piece of what they were looking to do. So that was really one big reason as to why folks wanted to live stream. The other one, and sometimes folks were a little reluctant to talk about this, is many of the churches would take me inside and say, look, our congregation, we're looking for it to grow. I'm hearing that most folks are checking out websites and live streams to understand that they're going to be comfortable when they go to a church. And so we did some research post that, and post-pandemic, we're seeing numbers along the lines of 3, 4, sometimes even 10 separate touch points before anyone ever sets foot in the door. And so, I think opinions range a bit when it comes to, should we be live streaming? Does that stop people from attending in person? My mind says you got to meet folks where they are. I don't think the live stream should replace, in person at all. But I do think it becomes super, super important for folks who are looking for that new place. You move to town. Where are they going to, feel comfortable? I think most folks are looking at live streams or recorded services really as a point of entry, so that they feel like, this is going to be a place I can be comfortable. This is going to be a place I'm going to step in. And so that's why I'd say, even now, post-pandemic, there's a big rise and then a little bit of questions of, is this still the right activity? I'm seeing the churches that really connect with their community. It becomes like the practice in order to make sure they're having full reach around both those places.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and just a little bit of my story. I just moved to Akron, Ohio, and we did exactly that. Like, it was we didn't know, like, even though I'm from here, I really had no like community or connect, because I hadn't lived here for like a decade or something like that, so I really didn't have a whole lot of connections, but we needed to find a church. And so the first thing we did is I started looking at church websites. Like, I was just scouring websites all the time. And then from there, it kind of went a little bit deeper than that. And then I actually started to watch some live streams and some sermons and all those kinds of things. And that's what led us to our church. Like, just the first initial touch point, having that first, what's the word? Like, good, first interaction, right? With before you even set foot in the door. So, that's great that churches are seeing that as like the reason why we should have these things. And that's always, and I think that you brought up that fear a little bit as well. Like, are people going to use this as an excuse to stay home and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
And I've never really run into that. I mean, some people might, depending where they're at, but like, I've always seen it as like, especially with me as when we have kids, it's like, we're sick, we can stay at home, but we can still have the opportunity to watch church online and be sort of a part of the service and things like that. So, that is a fear. I get that. But it's, I don't think it's as big of one as people might think. Cause I think people are like, if you're doing it right, you're driving people to the in-person part. So.
Exactly right. Like, I see some of the best church streams I see out there. They don't have to be like highly technical or super well produced, but it is that content coming through, and the stream is presented in a way where people are putting their best foot forward. And that, like, when it's genuine like that, I think that's what's really effective. That's what invites people in.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And how important is it to where you stream? Like, a lot of churches during COVID, it was like, same thing with like us during COVID. Everyone signed up for Tithely because it was the easiest thing to do, like $0 a month, easy to get on. So everyone started streaming to Facebook because it was the easiest thing to do and easiest thing to understand. And some people have probably just kept their Facebook live stream going. But how important is it to where you stream as a church, and that effectiveness towards, getting the outreach that you're wanting, that you were talking about, and things like that?
For sure. Yeah. So I would say, I've been at Switcher now coming up on 4 years. And I've seen this question change over the time that I've been here. I would say when I started my journey at Switcher, I would have said, hey, Facebook, that's where much of where church groups are tending to do much of their activity. That's probably the number one channel. And I still expect that to be a really big destination for most. But I think it has started to change, and a couple of things factor in there. One, I think Facebook has made it a little more challenging to stream if you're just getting started. So they now are looking for folks to have like membership on the page, and they're putting other restrictions in place. That's driven actually some people I've seen towards YouTube, where people are saying, all right, it's a little bit easier for me to stream to YouTube. Maybe I can get my catalog of sermons live on YouTube. Okay, excellent. That starts to work. I think for both of those places, though, while they remain important, when I talk to church customers, I see hands in the air saying, yeah, but on those platforms, my content is right next to distracting messages. Sometimes with YouTube, it can be like interrupted by ads, especially on rewatch. And it's not the ideal place for the type of messages, especially coming from folks who are delivering service. And so more and more, I've seen people say, I wish I could like control this a little bit. And so Switcher offered the ability to go beyond just the traditional social channels and actually start streaming either to your website or to a private player where you don't even need a website. It just is a link, and you're able to send folks there to view uninterrupted, and you control the experience. And more I'm seeing people go, oh, you know what? That's what I'm looking for. I want people to view it on the website or view it on my app or just view it on a place that's just for my community, in addition to getting that message out there. And I think that's where you're starting to see like multi-stream. I know that's the theme of today. Like that's why it's growing in prominence, because I don't necessarily want to give up Facebook or YouTube because it does provide a nice public reach. But I think there could be a great place where, this is the place that I control it. And I think that's where website is having a little bit of a resurgence. I mean, it's a reason for folks to go to the place on the web that you control. And I think that can be really important for folks like churches.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, what I always said, websites are the front door to your ministry, and you should have your live stream there, like to be able to be watched and stuff, no matter what. And so, would you say the philosophy then is, or maybe the strategy might be, is that when you're a church and you're thinking about multi-streaming and all that kind of stuff, is like, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like having all of those channels available, like, you should stream to Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of stuff, because that's where like people are. Like, let's say that's your town square of your community, and then so that's top of funnel. Like if you want to talk marketing terms, that's top of funnel, and then those streams should drive people to your website, and then hopefully like you gain viewers. Like let's say I found it on YouTube, but then I went to the website and I'm just going to continue watching it on the website. Is that what you've kind of seen as like the journey people are taking?
I think so. I mean, I think a lot of folks, when the light bulb first goes on and they say, I really want to be able to stream services, they're thinking about the social platform like a Facebook or a YouTube. So I think those become table stakes and will remain really important channels. It's going to be the way folks discover you. So that is a plus. That should be done. I think you do want to have a strategy where you are encouraging folks to migrate though from those channels over to one that you control. And even if you're just looking to get started, sometimes the first couple of streams, you may not want to go to those public channels yet. You may just want to do it on your website to get started. So I think it really depends on the goal of the church. If they're at a point where they're going, hey, I want to open the doors wide, I want to get my message out there, I would say the traditional social channels plus your website. If it's a point where this is just for community, previously, like I go years back, I would have said, sure, set yourself up a Facebook group. At this point, I'd actually say, you know what? I actually think you should manage that yourself. Own that community. Don't put that on a social platform where it could be interrupted.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's always important. one thing I was thinking about too, with this, just as it comes to mind as you're talking, and we've kind of like touched this a little bit, but how hard is it to stream to your website? Because it sounds pretty technical. With Facebook, it's just a matter of like getting that video feed and publishing it live. But like a website can kind of feel way more intimidating because there's like, a lot more things that go into it. So how hard or how easy is it to get to a website?
Sure. Yeah, no, great question. I have customers are asking me that. Like, oftentimes when I'm talking to them, they realize, oh, I can do this. How do I get this going? So I would say it's a little easier than you think, but it does take a little bit of setup. There are a variety of ways you can do it. First part, I would say, is if you can add a space on your website for live streams, that's like what you need to do with the website provider, which is really just give it a page where you're saying, hey, this is where we're going to do live streams. You post the times of your services. And that's really all you need to set up is just one page on the site. So just like you'd add the other page on the site, you can get that going. From there, if you use a service like a switcher, I mean, that's what I'm most familiar with. So that's what I'll talk about here. It's going to work just like any other live stream. So when you step into Switcher, really all you're going to need to do is say, here's where I'd like the video to go for Facebook. Here's where I'd like it to go for YouTube. And I'd like to stream to my own player. And you get a very similar kind of address as you would for locations to those other destinations. You just paste that into your page and it's going to give you everything you need. It's already set up. The player is there. It looks very much like a traditional kind of YouTube embedded player. There's nothing more that you need to be able to do. It's going to go live when you go live. So think of it as like a window that you've now put on your site. As soon as you hit go live within Switcher, great. You've got the ability to be live both on Facebook, YouTube, and others. What I love about the Switcher solution is not only are you live, but folks can engage with the player. And I know we'll talk a little bit about that. There's options to bring in some of the tools from Tithely right into the player at that point. But when you're done, it's going to create a catalog for you. So yes, you've got the live stream, but you've also got the ability to now, I've streamed for the last 4 Sundays. Great. Those are all laid out kind of Netflix style below. And folks are able to go back and look at that. And over time, you build up your own content library on your site. Not to get super technical, but this can be tremendous for SEO, right? You've got all those video links going on. When folks start to search on more general terms, it's going to raise your website's profile. People are going to be able to find you, and the content's going to be compelling. And again, as I've talked to customers, no ads, no distractions. Folks come to your website, they're getting just your message. They get a chance to engage with you. So I would say, some good things. So I saw some questions in the chat and the like. It does not matter who the website host is. If you control the site, very easy for you to just add a page. And then from there, the Switcher kind of product will do the rest. Like we'll take over a piece of real estate and you can control all of that through your Switcher account. And similarly, I saw that other question about format, same format that we'd be sending to Facebook or to YouTube. You don't have to worry about picking that. It's native with the player. So it's just going to roll right into what you're looking there.
Yeah, it's great. I think to kind of surmise what you're saying is like for multi-streaming, have those traditional social channels, but especially for churches to have something that you have control of is so important. And I think that's something that churches don't really think about a lot. Something that Tithely that like when we talk about our apps and things, it's like, you want something that you have control of. Like you don't want to ever have like your content in the hands of like Google and Facebook and Vimeo and all that kind of stuff, because like that can get pretty hairy and frustrating and stuff. But like if you have a spot where your sermons are going, you have complete control over it. That's like it's gold for you as a church to make sure you have what you want on that page. Because even like some churches have said like, oh well, I'll just embed my YouTube live stream, but it's like YouTube will stop like it does the auto plays, it recommends all those videos and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, you don't want, Grandma Sally saying, "Hey, why did I get recommended this video on your live stream?" It's like,
Exactly. Like, it's not something you think about. At first, you're kind of like, oh, this is great. It's free. I'm going to bring it in and I've got the content where I need it. But then suddenly you're kind of like, whoa, where am I headed with this? And beyond that, I also think, as I've spoken with customers who use this, you go out for a month and then you look back and you go, just by streaming weekly, I now have this catalog. Wow.
Yeah.
That allows me to have all these video assets. I can make clips later on. Like, I'm building up something of value over time. And I've seen a lot of churches who really, gone into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think having that content is huge. And I think churches don't, and this is kind of like 10 years ago, this language, but I'm going to bring it back. It still makes sense. It's like churches are content machines. Like they sit on gold mines of content every single week. I mean, your pastor and leaders are developing sermons for 50 plus hours a week. And then that content only gets used for 1 hour on a Sunday. It's like, there's so many different ways, and we can talk a little bit about this. And then I know we had some tips that we were going to go through, but there's so many ways you can use that content to expand that reach even more. Like you were saying, not just like streaming the whole service, but like, cutting that sermon up and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, and we don't neglect that as a church is what I would say, is like, use that, utilize it. Like, churches all the time, what should I post on social media? It's like, you literally have an hour TED Talk
for real.
You can cut up and like post on any channel in it, and every social media channel loves it when you post video. So it's like, just use that. So that's good. One thing you did say a little kind of touched on this. You said you've seen churches have expanded reach, and you've had stories from your customers that are like, hey, we've used this kind of philosophy, or we've multi-streamed to different things, and we've seen it grow our church. Do you have any specific stories that you can share from your customer base that would just inspire some people here?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we work with one church in particular. We reference them on our site, called Life Church. And this was one audio video person with one volunteer that were really doing the stream. So we were not talking about a huge team or like this incredibly large budget, right? Mm-hmm. For most of our users, Switcher is an iPad and an iPhone. And yes, you can go up to 8 cameras, and it's a hugely powerful tool. There's a ton of stuff to use. But most of our folks, they're looking to do, basic productions that can really punch above their weight. And that's what we saw in this case. So this one team, they stepped in with Switcher, started to regularly live stream on a weekly basis, right? They're not doing a ton of marketing, but with that weekly live stream, they built up over time a viewership up to 400 viewers globally. Some of their streams hit 600 live attendees. And this is not counting folks who would watch later, right? This is literally on the live stream itself. Yeah. And that was far exceeding their in-person attendance, which usually was, between 100 and 200 people. So they're almost like tripling their audience reach in a live service. They were head over heels with the results. And they were able to drive more engagement with those folks over time as it became part of their regular practice. The thing I'd call out here was, again, like what was so surprising is they weren't necessarily doing a ton of marketing. And like, if you add in some messaging on top of this, you're able to grow. This really just came from streaming regularly. And a lot of the times when I'm talking to customers, they're like, what's the one thing that I can do that's going to make this thing work? My answer to them often is just keep going. Right? If you do it 1 week and then take 3 weeks off and then 1 week again, it makes it harder to restart that audience. People are looking for that reliable channel. And I'd say more than anything else, just setting up and regularly attempting to stream. I also sometimes see folks who like are worried, oh, it's live. What if something goes wrong? a lot of times audiences are really understanding. Like they
Yeah.
get what live production is, right?
Right.
And so they're not necessarily expecting, like TV. They're expecting what a live production is. And so the stakes are lower. So if you can dedicate yourself to doing it regularly, not worrying about perfection, right? That's going to be the building blocks of a really successful stream.
Yeah. 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 Consistency is key, is the old adage, I think that's true with anything. And I think that's something that's like the first hurdle that you have to come across with anything, anything in life really, but especially when it comes to like marketing and advertising and things like that. And like, it's like, you just got to keep doing it, just to keep doing it and get a schedule going. And like to anybody out there that, whether it's live streaming or social media or whatever it may be, like just set something up like, hey, we're going to live stream one of our services every week. And then we're going to post to Facebook and Instagram 3 times a week. And just doing that, like having that consistency, like you said, looking for a consistent channel that's going to, whether they're looking for answers to life or just like answers about the Bible or whatever it may be, like if you're consistently posting that content, people are going to trust you. And like, it's just going to, create a lot more relational equity with somebody who's maybe considering attending a church and all that kind of stuff than if you weren't posting anything. So, I think that's really good. I think that's a huge point to anybody listening, no matter what you're trying to figure out, but just be consistent with it. Because that was always the hurdle I had to get over. Like I had to get it perfect. Like I just had to, everything had to be so like tweaked and refined in such a way. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start doing it. And it just like, it just helped get that mental block out and stuff. So that's really good. And anything from either that story or some other stories that you might have from customers, like what have you seen people do on their live streams to get people into the building? Like what kind of engagement tools have you seen people use? Is there any kind of strategies or philosophies around that you've seen that have worked really well?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, you can, as we hit it, doing it regularly is absolutely the first step. But what is fantastic once you start is you are starting to build up that content library. If you are doing any kind of social work, I encourage just some quick clips from that content library sent out, either image or short form video, with a quick time and place of when you're going live next. It does not have to, you don't have to go get a marketing agency to do this kind of stuff, right? Like something like a switcher can help you create some of those clips. But I would say like keeping it basic to a quick view on message plus date and time of that next stream. And again, one more reason for somebody to visit the website. Put up your schedule on when and where you're going to stream. Talk a little bit about what the focus of that stream might be. You'd be surprised how many folks will like engage with that content and come through. I'd also say that if you're starting to build that live stream, one of the important things you can do to really like grow it is to not only engage with the live audience in person, but also engage with the live audience through the stream. So this can get a little bit more complex. And, I would say this is almost phase 2, right? First, do the stream. It can just be directly the content you're coming. But as you get a little better, there is the ability to do things like featuring comments within the stream. There is the ability to do picture in picture. If you wanted to have an experience where you're focusing on a particular study or hymn or the like, one of the great things about Switcher is not just the content, but it can be like a show experience as though you were in person. And when we talk about like a live stream with a little bit of punch, it's great to get the content out. You've got the person on screen, kind of like what we're doing today, like talking heads. Wonderful. You get some good stuff out of that. But you're able to feature things like particular passages. If you're able to feature things like if there's a moment where you've got music included and you're panning over to the stage for that number, that can be really exciting and turn your stream from something basic into something much larger. And so
Yeah.
if you're offering those types of things in person, it makes sense to offer that kind of stuff through the live stream. And you want, a setup that can really handle those types of things. And that's why, when we built out Switcher, we wanted that experience for events. Multiple cameras, the ability to have graphic overlays, the ability for engagement tools. Those are the types of things that can really help drive.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's great. And I think when you do that stuff too, like when you make it feel like a service, if you were in attendance, like when someone does show up to your service that maybe was watching on the live stream before, it doesn't feel dissimilar, right? Like it doesn't feel awkward, or someone can make people feel more comfortable when you have it set up that way. I think it's great. And something that I used to do in my church in New York, we'd all, and this is kind of it was a cool story. Like we always would post like our connection card digitally in our chat. And we actually had a few people who filled out that card and ended up coming to service like from that too. So it's like, don't neglect, like as you grow this live stream, don't neglect the kind of like funnel mentality of like, hey, you've checked this out online, but we're way better in person or something like that. Like I've seen churches post that before. So that's always good, especially those people, because I think there's a growing rate of loneliness in our country, and people live online, and sometimes finding an online community is good, but that really drives that loneliness sometimes, because even though you might have friends online, you really don't. We need that physical connection with people, and so think about like not only can you not only grow the live stream, but think about ways you can funnel people into the church through the live stream and stuff like that. And that's an easy way to do it, I think, is the connection card, and just following them, give them a call, all that kind of stuff. Reach out to them, invite them to coffee, invite them to join you live, and things like that as well. So have you found that to be true as well? Like have churches done a lot of that?
I think so. Like I think for it depends often on like what the goal is, right? Like I think when folks are looking to engage or stream to a number of different places, I hear some different reasons out there. I think what's challenging is the streaming platforms. They're interested in content on their platform, right?
Right.
And so they're not often giving a good map of like, well, how do I put it in other places? They're not very interested, right, in doing that. And so it can be hard. You're going to need to you're going to need a provider to help you multi-stream like that. Right. At the end of the day, like that is where you're going to need to go. And there are some like do-it-yourself approaches. Like if you want to step into the world of OBS and other things, that can help you stream. There are other tools besides Switcher. Like I think, I don't want it to be all a Switcher deal and how to multi-stream. But I think when I think about the multi-stream piece, when folks are ready to stream to a variety of locations, you don't want to have to be doing one. Like I've worked with customers where they were literally like doing multiple shows, like one in the morning and then one later in the afternoon. It was like for different locations. We definitely, I would encourage you to get away from that, right? And there's a number of different providers that can help you with like how best to multi-stream. I would think the thing I put out there is, and there's also other providers that will help you like get it onto your website. Look for something that's going to do all of that, right? You want to be able to stream where you want to go to, but you also want to be able to hold it on that website.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the goal, I think, and this is why we work so well together, I think, as the two companies, and hopefully everyone in the audience feels this way too. But the goal of Switcher and Tithely is to simplify your technology, not overburden you with it. Sometimes, like it feels like the opposite's true, where it's just like, oh, it's this huge tech stack that I have to figure out, and it's like all these different tools and things that we have to do. And I think Tithely and Switcher have like simplified all that stuff for churches, especially. That's why I loved looking at you guys. I was like, wow, all I need is an iPhone. Like that's crazy. Like we hired.
And when we started talking, I would say that was like the number one sign of, oh, this will be a good partnership, because there was very much a background of, look, tech that should help lower the friction. Get it into the back seat. let's try to empower our churches to get their message out.
Yep.
And that's, I would say, trying to use it to simplify things for both the folks who are producing as well as the folks who are there to experience. Like, it's a big piece of what we've seen.
Yeah. Just before we get into questions and answers and stuff, and if you guys haven't put any questions in the chat yet, there's a little Q&A function over here on the side that will allow you to post questions for the Brandons, and we'd happy to answer those here in the next couple minutes. But before we get into that, I wanted to kind of go through a couple quick tips that that we can talk about a little bit. And I think the first thing, I mean, when we talk about this, a lot of times, like, consistency is key. And then I think the next part of this stuff is efficiency. So it's like, you want to be consistent, but then like you want to move into efficiency. And like, how are some things in terms of like, let's say I've been doing it for, a number of, let's say I've been live streaming consistently for a year now. And like, I've built up an audience. I'm live streaming to multiple platforms. Would you say at that point, should I, would your tip for me be, I should look at all those audience and decide which one is the most important? Like, would that be fair to say?
I think where I see a lot of my customers on this topic is, it's important to know where the bulk of the audience is going to be viewing from. And this is where I've seen, like, some folks have decided, look, Facebook is going to be the nexus, right? Like that's where I want to be able to really center the message. And so, great, a lot of my focus and even my engagement during the stream is going to be there. I would say, for folks who have migrated people from the social platform to be able to stream directly to their website, I really encourage folks for that to be the focal point, because that's where you're going to have the most control, right? That's the place where you can have folks either, bring right in the type of thing where you're going to engage. You can do polls if you needed to do links for giving. All those pieces are really front and center when it comes to the website. And so I do think it is the right answer to step in and pick one space that is going to be the focal point. But I also think when I've seen people do this in broadcast, they're acknowledging that they're streaming to multiple places. So what I would encourage, just quick tactically, oftentimes you're starting your stream, you've got like a countdown graphic that'll appear at the beginning of that stream. And I encourage folks to say, here are the places you can watch. So people know, oh, I'm watching this one stream. I happen to be here, but I also see that we're currently live streaming at YouTube at this address, or we're on the website at this address. So really in that opening card, people are saying, there's some other places to go to. If you do use a service like a switcher, there's others out there, right? There's plenty more. It is tough sometimes because it's hard to live stream. You can do it yourself if you were looking to set up your own server. Like, that is the ability to multi-stream. But there's a lot of companies out there that'll provide you the access. I'd say as you think about that, right, you are looking to give folks some direction about where they want to be. In terms of where they should be watching.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. And I think a second tip would be, like, okay, identify your audience, drive them to a focal point, like you said. Like, that's the first tip. The second one, I would say, once you get them there, engage with them. Like, engage with them like you would, and you've said this a little bit already, engage with them like you would at a church, at your, in-person gathering. Ask people to share prayer requests like we kind of did already. Like, we want you guys to post questions and talk in the chat and all that kind of stuff. So make sure that, like, even if it's like, and some churches have like a online host and all that kind of stuff. I understand not every church can have that, but like, even if it's someone who's, saying announcements and stuff like that from the stage, like, say, hey, if you're on the live stream, feel free to drop prayer requests in the chat and somebody will, reach out to you and pray for you and all those kinds of things. Like, just making them feel like they're acknowledged, I think it goes a long way too. So don't neglect that by any means. Figure out different ways that you can bring reality to digital reality, you know. And then you touched on this a little bit, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but just the last thing, like, what would your tips be for churches who are looking, like, once they've got the live stream, they got the content library, they've started to build up their live stream. Now it's time to start thinking about repurposing that content. How would you suggest churches should repurpose it? What are ways they can repurpose it? Like, what are your tips around that?
Yeah, I mean, so this is a place where I think you can actually see some of the platforms, whether it's TikTok or Shorts or Reels, right, where you don't have to. You can go away a bit from long form, where many church services kind of center their content around. I find folks taking small clips out of what goes on with their regular live streams, publishing those to social, publishing them on website can be really effective in terms of upping the game. So I think that's definitely one. I'd also say it is helpful for the video if you can get transcripts on just from the video, right? So if you're doing live streaming, it can be really helpful to have those transcripts in play. That's going to help them stand alone as content in future. Yeah. So I would say that I call that out as another important piece where you've got it. I'd also just say, again, I don't want to go like super crazy or if you're on overload, but I think a lot of churches today, they're thinking about, okay, on Sunday, we got to have that live stream. That's got to be in place. Yep. But there are other areas that we've seen some folks do really well. And that can be in the form of Bible study. I saw a couple of questions about like using Switcher with like a Zoom or a Google Meet. It does work for those applications as well. And this is a scenario where it can be a little bit more one-to-one, right? It can be more of a classroom style setup. And so providing some invitations to those additional type of video experiences, wow, that can like really start to generate interest beyond just kind of the once a week video check-in. If you're thinking about like leveling up where you want to take your usage.
Yeah, definitely. And I just thought about this because the way our small groups work is that they send out questions every week. It'd be cool to repurpose the sermon content based on those questions and have like short little videos that you send out to your members and stuff. And
I mean that you can really start to do a bit, quite a lot, right? As you're stepping into more of a dialogue versus going from kind of one broadcast out.
Yep. Yeah. You know, that's good. And I think that's a big takeaway. Don't think of your Sunday morning sermon as just a static one-time event. Like it can be used and repurposed multiple or throughout the week, you know, so don't neglect that at all. But let's get into some questions really quick. I appreciate you sharing everything like that. I think there's a lot of questions coming in. We probably have like 7-10 minutes left for questions and stuff. So I want to try to get through some of these. One of the things was, you mentioned this already, but does it matter who the host is for your website to stream to your website?
Yeah, I would say oftentimes not. What really matters, and I wish this wasn't the case, sometimes I'm talking to folks and they're like, but I don't know, like I can't change my website. I'm not sure how to go from here. You want to have control over that asset, right? Yeah. So like there are plenty of providers out there that can help folks right now. Tithely among them, right? Like make sure you're able to control that. And then it doesn't have to be a heavy lift. Adding a page in your navigation where it says live streams or video, that can really be enough. And then providers can help you kind of fill in that blank. And again, I don't want it to necessarily be a scenario where Switcher is always the answer. Can you bring in YouTube links? Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Can you bring in Vimeo links? Sure. But I would say, my only caveat there is I really want churches to own their own content. Yeah. Like the platforms, They're awesome at connecting people. And for that, I'm very grateful. After that, though, they're hungry for content and they want to use it a bit for themselves, right? And so I want to make sure, all my customers, but churches especially, like, let's make sure they're in control, they're in the driver's seat of their own content, and they're able to take those on. But it does not matter on who's the host.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, and I think you touched on something that's a broader thing that if you're a church, like, if you don't know the answer to that question, how do I edit my website? Like, you need to start there. Like, that's the thing you need to answer first, and figure that out. Either do some training with your provider, or do some Googling and stuff like that to figure out how to edit your website. Because, like, talking about digital ministry and all that kind of stuff, and having digital presence, like, it needs to start with how to those basic things, and then you gradually move up to live streaming and stuff like that too. So, like, and like you said, Tithely can help you with that. And there's a lot of great companies that are out there. If you do need help with a website, that would be able to help you. One question I got, and I think this is a good one for a lot of people who are considering something like a switcher, or just like a caster in general, but like companies like Switcher, previous church I worked with Boxcast, where the cost was where's the cost at? Because smaller congregations use YouTube and Facebook because it's free. What would your answer be to that?
Great question. I kind of see three levels that move along on this continuum. I think you've got like really, really early stage. And in that scenario, using free options are often a great way to get started. So if you're looking to use YouTube and you're going to do a basic production with a phone, great. That's a great way to get started. And I encourage, the streaming in that vein. I think there's a next step where folks often, like, there becomes a choice. And it's one where I go, okay, I'm either going to do a big investment in terms of an on-premise studio setup. And that means lots of cameras, video mixer, audio mixer. It often comes with a big price tag. Now, it can be fantastic for the folks who've got the budget. But I would also say many churches don't fall into that category. I think a lot of the folks that we work with were between those two kind of points. When you think about the free solutions or the very heavy equipment and budget solutions, this is I have one iPad and one iPhone, or I have a web-based camera and one iPad that I want to look for a good production. And that can start with Switcher and ultimately grow. And so here you do see a number of solutions, right? You've got the Boxcasts of the world, you've got the Resis of the world, Caster. Check them out. I encourage, look around at all those solutions. I think where Switcher has kind of made its major investments has been, we find a lot of folks, especially in the United States, have iOS devices, and they are hugely powerful when it comes to their audio and video capabilities. Yeah. Because those devices are on hand, wow, you can really create a production that utilizes not just the software that's running with Switcher, but this is a bit of Switcher secret sauce. It's working on the hardware on the devices to help you do what you need to do. And that's why it allows you to do a single stream to capture and then a multiple stream out. It's also the types of things that will allow like graphics and the like being overlaid or multiple camera, which I think has been a big piece of where like higher level production can start to come in. So when you think of the landscape, right? I think there are going to be some folks who go like, hey, OBS, I can do this myself. If you've got the time and you've got the experience to utilize OBS, that can be a great choice. It's a super powerful tool. I'm going to say most of my customers come in going like, I took one look at OBS and I was a deer in headlights. Yeah. I have some audio video knowledge, but I want to just set up the camera and I want it to work. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of where the software solutions have started to come in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like, again, I said the reason why we wanted to be in partnership with you guys is that you don't need to have a huge knowledge of this technology. Like Switcher allows you to stream to multiple platforms just using, one stream, like you said. But then, you don't need any existing equipment, which is fantastic. I think that's, you can just use your iPhone, your iPad, like you already said, which is, I think is great. I think we have time for one more question. Let me see. There was one I found. I had it and then I lost it. Was there any ones that you saw that you wanted to answer to? I want to make sure I'm not the only one grabbing these, but
yeah.
Oh, this is
Back through.
Yeah. Someone asked about, can you go back to SEO, which for those of you guys who don't know what SEO is, that's search engine optimization. So like your website always has to have, your website will always be optimized, either good or bad, for a search engine. And so can you go back to SEO? How do I make our live stream more searchable or visible?
Yeah, so great question. So a lot of that has to do with spending some time optimizing video title and really crafting a compelling description with what ends up going for that stream. We mentioned before a little bit about transcript. That's a good check the box piece on where you want to make sure not only are you having that video in place, but you're also capturing transcript of that video in order to ensure that that's going to be effective for the long term. So if I were to go through like a quick 3 points, that to me starts to stand out as where folks wants to be.
Yeah, that's good. Great. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and kind of explain how live streaming works and how we can multi-stream and things like that. Is there anything you wanted to add before we sign off today?
Yeah, I just wanted to, for folks who are interested in giving it a try, please check out Switcher at switcherstudio.com. We also, if you all are interested, at switcherstudio.com/Tithely, if you want to give Switcher a try and to go through the full holiday season, we are offering a chance to save a few dollars off our regular price. And again, you can always free trial on a monthly basis as you get going to check out how it works.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much, guys. Sorry we couldn't get to all the questions today, but feel free to reach out to me or anybody at Switcher, and be happy to set up any demos or walk you through any training that you might need for your church and get you set up and get you geared up for the holiday season and live streaming into 2026. So again, thank you so much, everyone. We will send out this recording and everything like that as well at the end. So feel free to watch it again and reach out to us. But I hope you guys have a great day. And thank you so much for spending your time with us. And we're praying for you all as you look to expand the kingdom and preach the gospel. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.